postpone it to today. So that's why we are putting into place some measures for security, for digital security. We hope this is going to minimize potential risks. So the IT team is quite attentive to it. And we hope this is not going to restrict the quality of our debates. All right. So without further ado, I would like to show you a video to remind us all of the history of the UNDROP. A short video for our introductory Mystica. The video will be played 1.5 minutes more or less in Spanish, 1.5 minutes in English, and then final French, so that we have the three languages covered. And then we can proceed to our usual program. I will share my screen. Is that all good, Leonie? Please let me know if you can see the screen. Yes, thank you, sir. I'll start.
Just make sure that when you click to show your video, you also activate also the sound. There's a knob that you have to check that the sound comes through. Okay.
All right. So this is not, the sound is not coming for you then.
No.
All right. So then.
Just restart. You just
all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
My apologies. So share.
We will share also the links in the other languages in the chat.
Yeah. Share sound. There we go. All right. Please let me know if it works now, Leonie.
De las personas campesinas. La Declaración de las Naciones Unidas sobre los Derechos de los Campesinos y de otras personas que trabajan en zonas rurales, también conocida como UNDROP, es una declaración de la ONU sobre derechos humanos que reconoce internacionalmente los derechos de las personas campesinas como sujetos políticos, las luchas campesinas, así como su relación especial con la Madre Tierra. Fue aprobada por la Asamblea General de la ONU en diciembre de 2018, tras 17 años de movilización y negociaciones lideradas por la Vía Campesina, el mayor movimiento mundial de campesinas, campesinos, personas productoras de alimentos y sus aliados. En los próximos minutos exploraremos las ideas principales de la UNDROP y mostraremos cómo el campesinado puede usar la declaración en su vida cotidiana y en sus luchas por la soberanía alimentaria, la agroecología, la justicia climática, la reforma agraria y los derechos humanos. Las declaraciones de derechos humanos de la ONU son instrumentos jurídicos internacionales, votados por los Estados miembros de las Naciones Unidas y adoptados formalmente por la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas. Aunque una declaración no es en sí misma jurídicamente vinculante para los Estados, su contenido refleja las obligaciones internacionales jurídicamente vinculantes en materia de derechos humanos. La UNDROP es histórica porque por primera vez se abordan las realidades y necesidades del campesinado y de las comunidades rurales en forma de derechos humanos y obligaciones de los Estados.
The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and Other People Working in Rural Areas, also known as UNDROP, is a UN declaration of human rights that internationally recognizes peasants' rights as political subjects, peasants' struggles, as well as their special relationship with Mother Earth. It was approved by the UN General Assembly in December 2018, following 17 years of mobilization and negotiations led by La Via Campesina, the world's largest movement of peasant food producers and its allies. Over the next few minutes, we will explore the main ideas of UNDROP and show how it can be used by peasants in their daily lives and struggles for food sovereignty, agroecology, climate justice, agrarian reform, and human rights. UN human rights declarations are international legal instruments that are voted on by United Nations member states and formally adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. Even though a declaration is not in itself legally binding to states, its content is often a reflection of legally binding international human rights obligations. UNDROP is historic because for the first time, the realities and needs of peasants and rural communities are addressed in the form of human rights and states obligations.
La Déclaration des Nations Unies sur les droits des paysans et des autres personnes travaillant dans les zones rurales, ou UNDROP, est une déclaration des droits de l'homme des Nations Unies qui reconnaît internationalement les droits des paysans et paysannes en tant que sujet politique, leur lutte, ainsi que leurs relations spéciales avec la planète Terre. Elle a été adoptée par l'Assemblée générale de l'ONU en décembre 2018, après 17 ans de mobilisation et de négociations menées par la Via Campesina, le plus grand mouvement paysan au monde, et ses alliés. Au cours des prochaines minutes, nous allons explorer les principales idées de l'UNDROP et montrer comment la déclaration peut être utilisée par les paysans et paysannes dans leur vie quotidienne et leur lutte pour la souveraineté alimentaire, l'agroécologie, la justice climatique, la réforme agraire et les droits humains. Les déclarations des Nations Unies sur les droits de l'homme sont des instruments juridiques internationaux votés par les États membres des Nations Unies et adoptés par l'Assemblée générale de l'ONU. Bien qu'une déclaration ne soit pas juridiquement contraignante pour les États, son contenu reflète souvent les obligations internationales juridiquement contraignantes en matière de droits de l'homme. L'UNDROP est historique, car, pour la première fois, les réalités et les besoins des paysannes et des communautés rurales sont abordés sous la forme des droits de l'homme et d'obligations des États.
Okay, so just a quick reminder of the long struggle we had until the adoption of the UNDROP, and an even longer struggle now ahead of us for the implementation and promotion of the UNDROP. I would like also to welcome those who have just joined. Bienvenido a todos que acabaron de sumarse. Bienvenue à tous qui viennent d'arriver. On a interprétation vers le français. Tenemos interpretación al español. We have interpretation into English and Bahasa. Pueden activar en el Zoom. You can activate this via Zoom mode interpretation, and you choose your language. So everyone, thank you very much once again for being here. This webinar is organized by the platform Defending Peasants' Rights. That is a collaborative platform, a website for knowledge sharing about rural struggles and the fight for the implementation and promotion of the UNDROP and the rights enshrined in it. The website was launched in December 2022. And it is co-run, co-led by Via Campesina, CETIM, FIAN International, and the Geneva Academy of Human Rights. And we counted the financial support of Fast and Action, Action de Carême in French, and Hex EPER. And we thank them very much for making this viable, this platform and rich space viable. So what is it about? So just a quick note before we start the program on the project. So just like the declaration itself, the UNDROP itself, this website is also made by and for rural peoples, the rights holders of the UNDROP, you know, and it is the same principle. We do it for ourselves and by ourselves with our allies as well. And so that we can have this space, you know, for uniting struggles of rural peoples and to really connect our intersectional struggles for peasants and other rural people's rights, as we're going to be discussing today. And in the past 2.5 years since the website was launched, we have released a series of articles, briefings, books, videos, materials showing the struggle for the UNDROP at national, regional, and international levels. We have also a section on the website on training and education for us to make use as movements and organizations in terms of awareness raising on the UNDROP. So we can use this to train our bases, our movement members, peasants, and other people working in rural areas. So I invite you all to check once again the website, especially if you don't know it or if you're not familiarized, and increase even more its usage and using it really in your everyday struggles as a communications and sharing tool. So just to highlight, we have in the past months highlighted one important feature in the website, which is the interactive UNDROP. In that part, in the section of the interactive UNDROP in the website, you can navigate article by article of the UNDROP, and you can connect, you can see all the articles and materials we have in the website related to each and every article of the UNDROP. So it's been a huge effort, and we ask you not only to use it, but also to feed it. If you have materials on specific rights, you can send it to us, and we will incorporate into the interactive UNDROP so that it is more and more complete. So without further ado, it's a collective platform for us all to use, and this is our annual webinar. And this year is very, very important. We have all or many of the rural rights holders of the UNDROP here together. We also have the privilege to have Shalmali Guttal from the UN Working Group on the Rights of Peasants. And I will, without further ado, give the floor to Sibylle from FIAN, and she will talk us through the program of today's webinar. Thank you very much. Sibylle, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Danilo, and also from my side, a very, very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Sibylle Dieren. I'm with FIAN, and I'm also part of the editorial board of the website defendingpeasantsrights.com. It's a pleasure to see you all, so many of you here today with us. I will keep it very short. We are already a bit delayed. I just want to say a few words about how we came up with today's topics. Why are we focusing today on the UNDROP rights holders? I'll quickly tell you what we have planned for the next 1.5 hours. So we actually had a meeting with a representative of UNDROP rights holders in February, and we discussed how we can strengthen the convergence between the different rural struggles, and also to see how we can make UNDROP more known, and specifically also how the website can help us to make UNDROP more known, but also how the rights holders can, as Danilo said before, feed the website, be active, use it, but also maintain it. And one concrete idea that we had in that meeting is to have this webinar focused specifically on the right holders, on the diversities of constituencies that are covered under Article 1 of the UNDROP. Because at the end is also, we know that UNDROP exists because all these rural communities have for very, very long been excluded from decision-making, even though they are the ones that feed the world, that protect the oceans, the land, the ecosystem. And as such, UNDROP is in a way a product of these joint struggles of the rural communities, and until today it is shaped by these struggles. So we wanted to create this space today to learn more about the diverse struggles of the right holders. So we will have representatives of many of the different right holders here, and they will give us like short intervention, explain a bit more how their struggle looks like, how their struggle for a just and sustainable food system look like, and also what role UNDROP can play in that. We think it's important that not only for people on the ground, but for a broader public, for decision makers, for academics, for CSOs, for everybody that may be still not aware how important and how broad the declaration is, that they know it better, and they also understand the full scope. And we think it's important to start by recognizing the UNDROP rights holders and fully understand Article 1 of the declaration. So these are the reflections that made us come together today and focus on the rights holders. And yeah, learn from them, exchange. So I will not make it longer here because we have so many interesting speakers. And with that, I would give the 4 floors to Shalmali Guttal. Shalmali is a member of the working group on the rights of peasants and other people working in rural areas. Then we will listen to a short intervention from the representative of the rights holders, and then we will have a moment for all of you to ask questions and exchange. Last comment, also feel free to ask questions in the chat. Maybe we can also interact there in case the time is, as always, short at the end. Thank you for that. And Shal, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sibyl, and thank you, Danilo. Can you hear me okay? And see me?
Yes,
it's
I can
okay?
hear you.
All right. Okay. So first of all, I would like very much I thank Via Campesina, FIAN International, CETIM, and the Geneva Academy for creating the Defending Peasant Rights website. This is, I think, possibly the most valuable source and space that we have for building broad-based support for implementation of UNDROP. And of course, I thank the Defending Peasant Rights Collective for organizing this meeting and for inviting me to speak today. It's a very timely and important discussion to have. Now, let me go right into Article 1. Who are UNDROP's rights holders? Now, this declaration is the first international human rights instrument that actually contains a definition of peasants. And what Article 1 in this declaration does is it lays out the main elements of how the rights holders of UNDROP can be articulated, defined, recognized. Now, the broad terminology, of course, that's used is peasant rights, but I will go into how the rights holders of UNDROP are broader than what are conventionally understood as peasants, and also lay out some of the challenges and complexities that we in the working group are facing as we move towards implementation. Now, in the very first clause in Article 1, the term peasant, this is in the declaration, I'm quoting from the declaration, it refers to any person who engages or seeks to engage alone or in association with others as a community in small-scale agricultural production for subsistence and or for the market. Now, this definition makes it very clear that not every person engaged in agriculture qualifies as a peasant. In order to be identified as a rights holder, she or he has to rely significantly, though not exclusively, on family or household labor and or other ways of organizing labor that can be monetized, that is paid or unpaid, and must have a special dependency on an attachment to the land. Now, following further on Article 1, again, there are many clauses in Article 1. Whenever you have time, please go through this declaration. It's a very interesting, very important, powerful declaration. Now, according to the clauses of further clauses in 2, 3, and 4 of this article, individuals or groups of individuals working in rural areas may be regarded as peasants, rights holders, provided that they meet the objective and subjective declaration requirements. Now, what does this include? Any person or community engaged in artisanal or small-scale agriculture, crop planting, livestock raising, pastoralism, fishing, forestry, hunting and gathering, or handicrafts related to agriculture or a related occupation in rural areas. Indigenous people and local communities working on the land, transhumant, which is nomadic peoples, and local and semi-nomadic, so nomadic and semi-nomadic communities, and landless people communities engaged in these activities, and hired workers, including all migrant workers, regardless of their migration status, whether they're legal, illegal, as the governments may like to say, and as well as seasonal workers on plantations, in agricultural farms, in forest, in aquaculture, in agro-industrial enterprises. All are counted as rights holders of UNDROP. Now, in our interpretation, that is from the working group, we take the term other people working in rural areas to be interpreted extensively in a broad way, so that it includes not only persons engaged, of course, in agriculture, but in all other ancillary activities of livestock raising, pastoralism, crop planting, forestry, fishing, hunting, handicrafts, gathering, and so on, and related occupations. And of course, also their dependent family members, as well as other people in their communities working in rural areas. Similarly, from the working group's perspective, when we think of the subjective element of what is a special dependency on or attachment to the land, this also needs to be interpreted extensively. It's not only land, but it's also the territories, it's water, it's forests, it's animals, you know. So we encompass in that the whole concept of nature and the territorial, regional, landscape, ecosystem aspects on which rural people and their families and their communities depend on and are attached for their livelihood, but also for their cultural survival. And then we also interpret further any, what we call in legal language, any environmental media, whether it's grazing, common and coastal lands, forests, freshwater, marine ecosystems, fishing grounds, fishing waters, all natural resources to which peasants and all the other people working in rural areas have a special dependency on and attachment, again, for livelihoods and ways of life. Now, this includes, for example, hired workers. It includes landless people. It includes people in aquaculture work, you know, on fish farms as well as plantations, because the base of the livelihood still comes from nature and comes from natural resources. It comes from natural territories and ecosystems. So you can see that the rights holders of an UNDROP are actually much broader than the terminology that is conventionally regarded as peasants. Now, in the working group, we felt that rather than externally defining peasants and other people working in rural areas or the rights holders, a better way forward is for rights holders to self-identify themselves in their individuals and families, as is been the case with indigenous people. We also note that UNDROP's rights holders maintain their identities regardless of any modification in their status due to changing socioeconomic circumstances. For example, rural communities maintain their status of peasants even if they are compelled to move to another place, or if they're displaced by a large infrastructure project, or if they're moved because of environmental degradation or diminishing natural resources, and that agricultural workers, those working in aquaculture, continue to be rights holders of UNDROP, regardless of where they are moved to and the conditions of their movement. Now, this is explaining the broad, expansive, how shall I say, terrain of the rights holders of UNDROP. But let me just, before I close, Sibyl, I'm just seeing I have another few minutes in my time. I would just like to place some concerns and challenges regarding terminology that we have already started to face. So the first is, for example, just even taking the terminology of peasant or farmer. In some cases, in some countries, the term peasant is considered negative. And we have already faced in some countries this argument that, oh, UNDROP actually, how shall we say, it does a disservice to rural people by calling them peasants, because peasant means backward, it means underdeveloped, etc. And we prefer the word farmers. And you know, the word, there is actually a trajectory from peasant to farmer. Now, but we also know that for many social movements, the terminology of peasant is much broader than those. It's not a pejorative, it's not a negative terminology, it's a political identity, and it's extremely important when peasant communities claim their identity as peasants. So this is a tension that we are addressing and dealing with in some countries, because we don't even have, you know, official and unofficial interpreters stating this point to us. Another challenge that we are facing can start to face is the issue of self-identification. Now, self-identification is, of course, very important because the rights holders of UNDROP know who they are. But self-identification can also open the door for manipulation, and it can create confusion and mistrust among people with different, sizes of land holdings, landless people, those who have fishing boats, those who don't, landless workers, migrant workers, and so on. So this self-identification needs to be moved forward with great sensitivity and care. And I think this is one of the very important contributions that this webinar will do, is it bringing us together in this concept of let's discuss how rights holders self-identify. Now, another challenge is existing tensions and even competition among UNDROP's rights holders. Now, UNDROP brings diverse groups under its umbrella as rights holders, but these rights holders may find difficulty to build unity because although rights holders may live in the same territory, in the same ecosystems, and they may share the same resources, they live in the same, they rely on the same aspects of nature and environment for their livelihoods and survival, there are historical tensions between many different communities of rights holders. And they are easily divided by capitalism, by businesses, by elites, and even by state agencies for particular purposes. And we've already started to see that across many countries, and we can discuss this further. Another challenge and, how shall I say, potential point of, shall we say, tension is the issue of rural women and patriarchy. Now, Article 1, of course, includes in it rural women, and Article 4 of UNDROP has a special category, has a special, in fact, rights protection for rural women, and lays out all the different intersectional discriminations that rural women face and instructs governments on how to address these discriminations. But, there are so many declarations, there are human rights instruments, there are treaties on CEDAW, for example, and on eliminating discrimination against women. But a treaty or a human rights law itself does not address the issue of patriarchy, nor does it address the issue of sociocultural norms, and also the fact that many movements and unions and organizations may feel cornered and feel that they are being divided by the issue of gender justice. And this, again, is a product of historical capitalism and patriarchy and the intersectional discriminations that happen there. But it can be a flashpoint, and we need to move on this also sensitively and carefully, but definitively. By the same token, we are also coming up against social hierarchies and discrimination by race, by ethnicity, caste, religion, and conflicts arising from these. Now, the reason I'm putting these on the table is that, the UNDROP rights holders were directly included in the articulation of Article 1. They are more than 50% of the world's population, but they are not a common mass of undifferentiated people. These are people who come from different backgrounds, different professions, different abilities, different genders, different races. They are agents of their own change, and but they're also exploited. They're also have also faced many layers of multidimensional and intersectional discrimination, and they have been divided by capitalism and by states also pursuing certain objectives. So it's extremely important that as we build a common platform for implementation going forward, that we recognize both the diversity of the rights holders and the power of the rights holders, but also the challenges that rights holders face, and that might divide them. And we address these challenges in trying to build a common platform for implementing UNDROP. Thank you, and I hope I didn't take too long, Sibyl. My apologies if I did.
Thank you very much, Shalmali. No, you didn't take too long. It was very, very interesting and enlightening to listen to you. Thank you so much for elaborating on Article 1 and the right holders, and also bringing in some of the challenges and tensions due to the diversity, which can be a strength, but it can also be, as you said, it can also be used as a divider and can be used by capitalist or patriarchal system to do so. Thank you so much, Shal. And I will give over to our good friend Raffaele Morgantini, who will facilitate the next part of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sibyl. Voy a hablar en español.
I'm going to speak Spanish. Thank you so much, Sibyl. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be in this historical event, I would say. My name is Raffaele Morgantini. I represent CETIM. It's an organization based in Geneva that's been active for many decades, working on food sovereignty, and it's also a founder organization of the website Defending Peasants' Rights. I will continue with the facilitation of this webinar, and in the main part of this webinar, we're going to listen the different perspectives of struggle of people that represent movements, rural organizations that reflect the huge diversity of the right holders of the declaration. Mostly, we are talking about organizations that participated on the negotiations of the declaration between 2013 and 2018, because they are recognized as representative organizations of sectors. And also, we have organizations that represent rural populations that are very important, that perhaps are still not recognized in Article 1, but that are they self-identify themselves as such. So let's start to listen to the different organizations with their perspectives, facing the rural struggles that are taking place in the territories in order to transform these food systems, and how this is related to the declaration. I will give the floor to Fernando Garcia. He represents WAMIP, is the World Alliance of Indigenous Mobile People. Is a grassroots movement of communities, of nomad communities that share pastoralism, and they have the strategy of moving around for their subsistence, and they contribute to biodiversity. And they've been very active during the negotiation of the declaration, Fernando mainly. So if Fernando is ready, I will give him the floor for the first intervention. Fernando? Was he assigned as a co-host? Now he's a co-host, so he can unmute himself.
Please test now, Fernando. You should be able to. Yeah, perfect. 1 moment. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm not sure if I should or Spanish.
Como quieras, como quieras.
Whatever you prefer. You can speak French, English, Spanish.
Bueno, voy a seguir en. Sorry, I will speak in English then. So first of all, thank you for this opportunity. This opportunity to take part in this moment, in this forum. Okay, I just had to turn to mute the translation, otherwise I would hear myself in Spanish. So, as I said, thank you, the organizers, the team, PR for this opportunity. And sorry for this a little bit accidental jumping into the conversation. We are at the moment haying. It's the moment of the year where we have to put all the hay ready for the winter. I am connecting from the north of Spain, where we have our cooperative association. We produce cheese, and we also train others on the shepherding with a shepherd school that has been running since 2004. In 2007, I am been working with WAMIP, the World Alliance of Mobile Indigenous Peoples, and I just wanted to, well, explain a little bit that these years of coming together have shown what we share as common challenges, despite the differences between the different realities and cultures. So we are organized in regions, and in Europe, the European Shepherds Network is allowing us to have a common space to see the common difficulties and to plan forms to plan ideas and actions that will confront those difficulties. Many are common, for example, the fact of not finding the right, let's say, legal frame in which pastoralism and extensive livestock can happen. A legal frame that includes the right to mobility as a crucial aspect. No? Extensive livestock systems depend on an extensive use of territory of the land for an eventual use of the available resources, the grass resources. And for that, it is needed sometimes to move from region to region, from country to country, transboundary movements. And as we know, this is very difficult in the post-colonial world, no? of borders that sometimes don't recognize the reality of pastoralist community, like the Tuareg in West Africa, the Maasai in East Africa, or in Central Asia. In our case, we also have other difficulties related with actually the right to land that is not the land, the right to have individual property, more the right for commons. Common pastures have been defined for millennia, and they depend on a community consensus and sophisticated systems of defining those commons. And all those specific rights are very often violated when other interests come to give value to that land where pastoralists have been grazing for millennia. For example, many of these areas, because they are not fenced or enclosed and are cultivated, they are considered like no man's land, and they are considered just like sort of wild areas where, for example, we see wild fauna thriving. But we have to realize that many of those open forests and open grasslands, in fact, are places where the coexistence between the activity of pastoralists and the wild fauna has been going for many millennia. And this is crucial because now, in many cases, we see, for example, that under the intention of protecting nature, so in some cases, authorities are not recognizing the fact that pastoralism happen in those areas. So we are seeing eviction of pastoralist communities for nature protection's sake, and the protection of wild areas, and that's something that is just showing a little bit of a short-sightedness and blindness to what is crucial in the continuity of these spaces, that is the presence of also domesticated herbivores and management like the fire management and other ways. So this is just an example, but we see in other cases the impossibility to access pastures due to mining and extractive activities or infrastructures, conflicts also. I think that this was what we were realizing. Also, the fact of the need to have livestock keepers' rights in terms of maintaining the genetic pool of the breeds of animals and races that have been selected as well collectively for my lineage, and all those specific needs and rights that we were defining. It's what we brought to the process towards the UN Declaration for peasants and producers, people living in rural areas, together with other sister organizations like the Via Campesina, the Fisher Folk, and other living in the land. And I think that this is well, this has been a very empowering and encouraging process to arrive in Geneva to got the declaration passed. And I think the question now, the challenges is to see how we can apply to the everyday problems and challenges that are being seen in many areas, how we can use this instrument to leverage national policies, how we can translate this broader frame into a specific support locally, and see how this could be also reinforcing other legal instruments. For example, on spaces. For example, we are approaching 2026 will be the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralism, as defined by the UN, and it will be implemented within FAO. And I think that this is a great occasion to start to put in the center pastoralist organizations and grassroots pastoralist movements to discuss about the future of rangelands and pastoralism, and therefore to consider them not just mere stakeholders in the discussion, but rights holders. And this would have to be translated into specific mechanisms of representation that we are asking FAO to implement, and not just, as I said, to have translated into decision-making spaces. The steering committee could have the pastoralist center as rights holders, and also to define together what are the actions that are more helpful and needed at the moment in the field. So I wouldn't like to take a lot from the seminar we're having now and the rest of the speakers. Yes, thank you again for this opportunity, and any question, let us know. I invite you also to check on wamipglobal.org, our website, and our social media channels to follow up the different actions we are doing. Recently, we had the chance to have a training on UNDROP for Eastern Africa region, and we hope we will have the chance with the team to do another specific training for Central Asia. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias, Fernando, por tu intervención y por compartir un poco los lineamientos estratégicos de WAMIP de cara a esos
Thank you
desafíos
very much for sharing with you, for sharing the situations of WAMIP and your participation in this collective space of this legal framework as it is UNDROP. Thank you very much.
Something else I forgot. I'm just jumping also in the seminar after Edward from Pingos, the Maasai organization in Tanzania couldn't connect today. It was expected to be Edward who would be speaking on behalf of WAMIP, and especially Pingos are at the very front line of struggles for their rights after evictions in the Ngorongoro area to create a national park by the Tanzanian government. So we send all our courage in their struggle, and thank you for this possibility.
Gracias por recordar y claro, toda nuestra solidaridad con
Thank you very much for reminding us about the challenges in Tanzania, Edward's country. So I will move on to the next organizations representing Sui Longley. I'm referring to WITA, that is the International Union of Workers of Food, Agriculture, Restaurant, Tobacco, and others.
It is a union that defends solidarity of workers across the food chain, doing an important work, exerting pressure into the corporate chain so as to defend working rights of peasants. They have actively participated in the declaration between 2013 and 2018. They have a lot of experience, and we are really glad that he is with us today. I would like to then pass on the word on to Sue just to comment about your work at the union and what are the main challenges you are facing now, and how you conceive the role of UNDROP as an instrument for your struggles at the union.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you for that very warm introduction, and delighted to see so many people on the call. So first, very briefly, the IUF, as Rafael explained, is a global organization representing workers in all of those sectors: agriculture, food processing, hospitality. And we currently have 427 affiliates in 128 countries. Going back a little bit into the history, there used to be a separate global union called the International Federation of Plantation and Agricultural Workers, and that merged into the IUF in 1994. But the IUF established a space within its governing bodies, within its structures, our Agricultural Workers Trade Group, we call it, to make sure that there was always a space and a voice for agricultural workers in the IUF. I do want to acknowledge what was shown in the video, that very much the thinking that drove UNDROP came from La Via Campesina, and La Via Campesina very kindly opened up the discussion to the IUF, brought us in when the scope of the declaration was widened to include what is, I guess, quite a strange phrase of other people working in rural areas. Now, to be very clear, our membership is essentially employed workers. It can be often very precarious work, temporary work, but somewhere in their life there is an employer who controls their work, who will probably own the tools that they're working with, certainly owns the livestock that they're taking care of. So that, I think, brings us a little bit to some of the tensions that Shalmali referred to, because of course some of those people will have aspirations to own their land, and that can be a point of conflict. And we've also known cases where, for instance, small farmers have tried to take possession of land, invaded a plantation, and the owner will send the workers to defend the land. And of course, they do that because their livelihood depends on it. So that those tensions are clearly there. And I will conclude by saying in a couple of minutes where we think UNDROP can help with that. I think our current challenges are our historical challenges. And this is really one of the reasons why UNDROP was important for us, was because in many jurisdictions, agricultural workers are excluded or have lower levels of protection than other workers. In some countries, still illegal to organize agricultural workers. And for instance, health and safety laws don't protect them as much, and all of these sort of things. So if we look at the US, not the country at the moment that is leading the fight for rights, of course, but historically it's been a problem for agricultural workers. They've been excluded from the National Labor Relations Board. And the reason for that is, quite frankly, race discrimination, that many agricultural workers were either Black or Latino workers, and they were not deemed to need the same levels of protection. Fortunately, that is changing, and many of our affiliates are in the US and Canada are involved in the battle to extend rights to agricultural workers. But that really is for us a problem, that what for us is the fundamental enabling right, the right to join and be represented by a trade union, is often denied to agricultural workers. And then we see that many other challenges come from that. Lower levels of collective bargaining and the protection that would bring still many cases of discrimination. Women have difficulties to get jobs in agriculture and paid a lower rate of pay. And frankly, there are still some of those really big issues like forced labor and child labor in the sector. So actually having that fundamental right to join and be represented by a trade union is key for us. And I think now as we confront a very challenging political environment, it's really focusing for us on some of the vulnerabilities of the workforce we represent, in particular migrant workers. In many, many countries, the sector is dependent on migrant workers, and yet they're at the forefront of the attack by increasingly right-wing regimes. And so defending them will be one of our major challenges going forward. So all challenges remain very current challenges. And where do we think UNDROP could help us contribute to those? I think in the current political environment, it's very important that we don't ever put it in the context of plantation workers versus small farmers. We really need to look at the synergies that the declaration provides to make a common alliance, a common front against those dominant forces in the agro-food chain that control effectively the lives of both. I think also we need to look at common work around things like access to land and to resources and to water. Again, rights that are clearly there in the declaration, but could do more in terms of the synergies between them. One of I think the most important things, and I would speak for the IUF on this, but I think it's also important for organizations like Via Campesina, is that ensuring this fundamental right to come together into organizations that defend the rights holders is really, really important. And again, looking at that common messaging around UNDROP, how we can use it to build the synergy, to build cooperation and coordination, despite some of the challenges around the wording and the things that I think Shalmali outlined very clearly. I still think there's a huge amount that we can do to use the declaration to build synergy, to build cooperation, really to fight for all workers covered by the declaration to have access to those rights and to ensure that it's really implemented. So thanks for this opportunity to have an input and look forward to hearing from other people how they see the developments. Thanks, Rafael.
Muchas gracias, Sue, por tu intervención.
Thank you, Sue, for your words. Thank you for referring to delicate tensions that we see in the different territories, but we are convinced that the declaration can be used as a tool to coordinate actions and so as to open the dialogue to address these tensions. You mentioned to create this collective front so as to defend the peasants against the mainstream politics, and we hope that all of us may be able to join this common front of action. So now I would like to pass the word on to John Spartacus. John is a representative of the World Forum of Fisher Peoples. It's a social movement at grassroots level composed of over 10 million small fishers. This forum was founded in the 90s in India as a response to the increase of the pressures exerted on the small-scale fishing in the hands of predatory companies. It's a social movement movement that has actively participated in the declarations process. So I'm really happy to have you here and to be able to listen to John's approach on the role of the declaration in this struggle to defend the rights of fisher peoples. John, you have the word.
Yeah. Am I audible and clear? So, thank you for providing us this opportunity. My name is Jones Thomas Spartacus. I have been representing the World Forum of Fisher Peoples. It is a union of more than, it's a forum of more than 40 countries all over the world, fisher peoples from Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe, been together, and it was been founded in 1996. And recently we had our General Assembly 8. And we have been fighting for our rights with La Via Campesina, with IATC and all the peasant movements together and the indigenous movement to assert and reclaim fisher people's sovereignty and the other marginalized group sovereignty since 1997. So I am here to bring out our voices from the frame of UNDROP, which we have registered we have registered our submissions also, because if you see the narratives of fishers for the past 30-40 years by the academicians, by the bureaucracy, by the international finance, international organizations, it is very narrowed and scaled us to small scale fisheries. So this terminologies, as Shalmali was saying about terminologies before my sharing, this terminologies has killed us a lot, because it tried to say that we need the right to fishing only. Small scale fishers have the right to fishing only. So this narratives and this terminologies has marginalized a lot. So this resolution, we firmly came up this time in the G8 resolution. We have defined who are fisher peoples in the preamble itself. I will be sharing in the chat box. After my sharing, I will share the resolutions and the declarations soon. So why I was saying this is that fisher peoples is a wider sense. Fisher peoples is from the mountain streams to the ocean. The people who have been doing capture fishes, the people who are having traditional fish farms, who have been going traditional fish farms on the river banks, on the mountains, on the streams, mountain streams. So we as capture fishes from the rivers to the seas and the streams to the sea, we are all not same. The river fish, if it comes to the sea fish, it will die. The sea fish go to the river fish, it will die. Different communities. Fisher peoples are different, have different identities, different cultural notations, but we have been fishing. Fishing means hunting. Fishing means hunting. Fishing means not producing anything. We are not producing anything. When I say produced, because why I am saying this, there is a terminology called post-harvest, pre-harvest in fishing also, which is used by the United Nations Food for Agriculture since long time. Because we are not harvesting anything in the sea, we are catching the fish. So these narratives and terminologies are killing us a lot. This is the greatest challenges in today's context also. And also it is a division mode to say that small scale fishers and mechanized scale, the mechanized mode of fishers. There is a huge mood of division throughout the nations has been created through these terminologies. But the irony or the reality is that these mechanized boats are being promoted, are being sponsored, promoted by the nations itself. By the nations in the sense, by the IMFs and by the Food for the Agriculture to increase the production of fish. to increase the fish production to increase more export revenue for the markets, to feed the seafood industry. But the blame is on fisher. So fisher peoples, why I'm saying this, that this terminology is the greatest challenges for us. So we always say that we have fisher peoples, fishing peoples, and also indigenous coastal communities who are dependent on fisheries. Throughout the coastline, we have indigenous coastal communities who are dependent on the fisheries. They are not involved in hunting, but they are involved in other fisheries allied activities. And they are also part of us. They collect fish, they gather fish. And they are all, I say indigenous coastal people, because they are also indigenous, they are also along with us. Estuarian fishers are very different. So there are different cultural, among us, we are all capturing fish, we are all hunting fish, but the narratives are different. Our cultural and our social context is totally different. So that has to be, in these days, has to be understood. But while phrasing that, only we can understand how much violations and how much human rights violation is going on us, and which is an historical injustice on us, which is going on and going on and going on. So here the problem is that in today's context, if you see today's context, everything is blue now. Everything is blue, and they say that the blue, when you talk of capture to culture. And this, when you say capture to culture, they are saying that we are hunting the fish, and it has more carbon footprints, and we are culturing fish, and it has carbon less footprints, and it is also linked with the climate fall. It is also a climate fall solution. Now they are turning the wheel of the fisheries productions to a different mode of culturing fish. And industrial aquaculture farms are everywhere. It's a factory farming that is happening on. And this is pushed to all the nations to give up capture fisheries. They are growing fish in the streams, they are growing fish in the lakes, the drinking water dams, in the estuarians, and also in the sea as mariculture. Different forms of it is there. And it is mostly exported, it is mostly industrial driven, it is mostly corporate driven. The UN food summits are being taken care of this. And the Food and Agriculture United Nations is also having their action plan or their agenda stating blue transformation and boosting the aquaculture industries.
John, can you please conclude in a minute, please? We still have. Thank you.
So this is one challenge of, this is the one challenge of food sovereignty of us. And if you go to the other covenants and the articles also, the right to territories, we ask for, we are amphibians. We have the right to the waters, right to the land. We are amphibians in nature, so we need customary rights over our land and waters. So we insist this territorial rights, that is the territorial and the marine rights or the water rights. So amphibian rights is more important when which is the greatest challenge, and we want that to be articulated under UNDROP. And the other challenge is that it is not only the land in the coastal areas, it is also considered as forest due to the ecological sensitive areas. So 30 by 30 as biodiversity conservation is also holding our lands and enclosing our lands. So we are having multiple challenges in the multiple phases of this development, challenging the food sovereignty and challenging the sovereignty of fishery. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Jones, y por traer
Thank you, Jones, for bringing the voice of this fundamental rural component. I'm sorry I had to interrupt you, but we have 45 minutes left and we still have 4 speakers to go. And we would like to leave some time as well for debate and to conclude our session. I will now give the floor to LVC, La Vía Campesina, that is represented by David Otieno from Kenya. I think that Via Campesina does not need much introduction. Is one of the main, biggest social movements articulated in many countries that represent more than 200 million peasants, and it's the origin of, it represents the origin of this process of empowering ourselves to codify fundamental rights for rural populations. We are here mainly due to this incredible work by La Via Campesina. So I'll give the floor to David Otieno, and I will ask all of you to try to keep to the 5 minutes that we set for your interventions. Are you ready, David? Perhaps we need to make him a co-host. Maybe he's disconnected. David?
Is there a CD? David?
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you so much. I want to speak. I'm David Otieno. I'm a member of La Via Campesina from Kenya, the Kenyan Peasant League. I'm a smallholder farmer. Yeah, thank you so much. Perhaps I must say that the UNDROP, or the declaration to us as a La Via Campesina, is a very important tool for advancing the peasant struggle. Because as the speakers before me have rightly said, before we had UNDROP, or even before that, when people talked about farmers, most of the discourses about farmers was around large-scale farmers growing cash crops. And of course, in many countries, Kenya included, even in Africa, you find that the governments always, when they're talking about food production, then they are looking at food for export. And that's why the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants is a very important tool for La Via Campesina. And of course, La Via Campesina, having played a very key role in, of course, with allies in pushing for the adoption of the UNDROP. Of course, after adopting it, it's also very important for us to ensure that the UNDROP is used as a tool or fully implemented in our countries. And of course, as one of the speakers said, one of the biggest challenges that we are facing is the arguments by governments that UNDROP is not legally binding. And this one, we have seen this across many territories where any arguments, and in fact in Kenya, around 3 years ago, the Supreme Court of Kenya ruled that UNDROP and the voluntary guidelines, although not legally binding, are very important tools to be used to clarify some rights that maybe are in other instruments or perhaps within our own legal frameworks. So that was a very big victory to us as La Via Campesina. And again, of course, another one of the opportunities that we have is that many people in government spaces still don't know about UNDROP. And it's an opportunity for us to be able to engage with the policymakers, apart from also engaging with the right holders themselves, to be able to demand. And of course, what we have learned from our end is that successful only takes place when the right holders themselves understand the rights that have been bestowed to them as a result of such declarations. So we are intensifying trainings and formations in our agroecology schools to ensure that as many people as possible who are the right holders are able to be able to understand the instrument and understand how it can be used to claim their rights. And of course, it's another opportunity because, especially in terms of engaging with regional judicial processes like the East African Court of Justice or the African Court of Human People's Rights, because the nature of the attack on the peasant life is always global. It's always coming up in form of declarations or agreements, free trade agreements that are global in nature and always tend to be given more attention by our countries when it comes to making decisions. So again, perhaps United Nations Declaration on Rights of Peasants is very, very much useful to us when we are engaging or trying to claim these rights, perhaps in the international spaces or regional spaces. And of course, one key challenge, again, that we are facing in the ground is because, again, at the United Nations level, at the FAO level, we have seen AFL perhaps maybe trying to organize, calling peasant leaders. But when you come to the regional offices, especially if you look at the East African FAO offices, because the UNDROP talks about mobilizing international agencies and the UN agencies and international funds. And it has been very difficult to be, for example, to be able to bring in local agencies, international agencies within these territories. So that is also a very, very big challenge that is also affecting us. But all in all, as La Via Campesina, apart from just pushing for adoption of UNDROP at the state level, La Via Campesina is also a guiding instrument within the movement organization, how movements are organized, different categories of the rights holders. And as somebody says, sometimes you have that before then, we could be having people who had farm workers who maybe they were considering them as not maybe people who have rights. So yes, we could be having immigrants being mistreated by countries, but we also have workers being mistreated in our own homesteads, in our own. So that's why we believe that internalization of this declaration of this instrument by the rights holders themselves and being adopted by the movements as a guiding instrument for organizing is also one of the key steps for ensuring full and proper implementation. So I will stop there, and maybe I will be available for comments. And of course, I want to say that we need also to make use of the working group, because especially in the African region, Sub-Saharan region, we are seeing we are not seeing a lot of engagements, especially in response for let me say articles or call for statements. So I guess as movements, we also need to ensure that we are able to monitor whatever is happening in our countries and are able to respond to such calls for inputs regarding various topics. And this we believe is going to ensure that we bring everybody on board in implementing the UNDROP. Thank you so much, comrades.
Gracias, Sidi, por compartir tus reflexiones sobre los desafíos.
Thank you for sharing your reflections and some fundamental aspects of the strategies of implementation. I remind you that in the website, we have many articles where we're trying to socialize, to inform the audience about specific, concrete examples on how the implementation of the declaration is moving forward. And there's this the Supreme Court Act that you mentioned, and this shows that when countries generate these strategies, we can really implement the declaration. I give the floor now to Modesta Arevalos. She represents FIMARC. FIMARC was also one of the organizations that was whose participation was so important during the negotiations of the declaration. Modesta, please, you have 5 minutes. I give you the floor. Good morning. It's very cold here, but good morning to all of you. It's very cold for us. Thank you, Rafael, CETIM, and the whole team of LBC for facilitating this space. As you said, well, I'm speaking from the north of Paraguay. It's a good place to talk about these topics. We say that if it happens in the north, it will get to Paraguay at some point anyway. As it was mentioned, the FIMARC, our organization, is a movement from the Christian values. It was founded in 1964 in Portugal, and since then, it's been working with 60 movements in 57 countries. Our main challenge from Paraguay, which is the essence of FIMARC, is that the human values that are shared from the Christian cosmovision can be applied also in the rural world, so that the well-being is possible in the rural homes. And we are promoting the rural work as a as a livelihood, and we are sharing our knowledge with all the different generations. The indigenous peoples that are not close to resources are more and more seeing that their natural resources are not available for them, and is putting the work of the farmers on top of the industrial production. This is strategic because it allows us to unify the social movements from the territories. This is one of the big challenges that we are placing. We understand that there is not enough knowledge still in the territories about what UNDROP might imply in terms of guaranteeing the rights. And I see it as because this is a conquest, right? An international level that we've had, but we need to materialize it in the territories. It's a way of building popular power in order to have a better dialogue capacity with the governments. We have 3 levels of government, democratic, republican, and we have a regional government, and we have local government. So our challenge is to how to implement this from the different districts. And we were saying that our national constitution offers a democratic participation, and in this democratic crisis that we are enduring, we need to see how to build and emphasize the transition to the participative and to build plurality.
So, from the point of challenges, we should create coalitions at grassroots level. Engaging also these rural families that are still not engaged in the struggle, and in that sense, UNDROP is an important instrument in all these spheres. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I make myself available for future questions. So thank you very much for your contributions. I would like to give the floor to Norah Mlondobozi from the Assembly of Women's Workers. It is an articulation of different organizations in Southern Africa that started in 2009 so as to do stewardship in the territory, and they are using UNDROP as a tool of theirs in their struggle.
Thank you, Raphael. Unfortunately, my camera is not working, but I am Norah Mlondobozi, a member of Rural Women Assembly, South African chapter, shortened as RWA. RWA is a self-organized rural women movement across 11 countries in the SADC region. It is dominated by small-scale farmers who strive to feed their families and communities at large with healthy and nutritious food. RWA advocates and practice agroecology with the intention of moving to a sustainable food system that will lead to food sovereignty. We multiply, we save, we share, and use our own traditional seeds to reduce dependency on commercial seeds. That is in favor of the Green Revolution that exacerbates soil degradation and climate change. Our current struggles is gender inequality when it comes to land access. We are unable to participate actively in the food system due to an inability to access land with water. It is very challenging for a South African rural or semi-urban woman to access land. RWA South Africa started a One Woman, One Hectare campaign as a strategy to address inequality in land access, to combat dependency that increases gender-based violence, which is already declared as a pandemic in South Africa. In response to our request, the duty bearers changed our campaign to One Household, One Hectare, and this was a slap on our face because of the patriarchal system that govern most of our households. This only means that the 1 hectare we are fighting for will be in the hands of the abusive men. And this does not address the challenges that we are having as rural women. RWA rejected this change and stick to our own initial campaign. Farm workers and farm dwellers, mostly women, continue to be exploited and evicted by white commercial farmers in their farms. The South African government continues to recognize the apartheid seed laws 30 years after the downfall of apartheid and criminalize the use of our own indigenous seeds. UNDROP, we regard UNDROP as a tool that will assist us to realize our own rights, the right to access land, and to right to use our own seeds. Rural Women Assembly believe that the use and saving and sharing of the multiplication of our own seeds will assist us as Rural Women Assembly to achieve our own rights. Despite South African being a signatory to this tool, to date, there is no policy, there is no attempt by our government to implement UNDROP. In 2022, in an effort to push for the implementation of UNDROP, RWA South Africa made submission to the United Nations Universal Periodic Review in Switzerland. Our focus was on the right to food and food sovereignty, which is Article 15, and Article 17, which is right to land, and right to seed, Article 19. 3 UN member states, that is Canada, New Zealand, and Tunisia, recommended that South Africa comply to its commitment to implement UNDROP. We understand that the declaration is not a binding tool, but in conclusion, we appeal to the UN working group together with the civil society organization to push for our governments, especially those who have signed the declaration, to adhere to their commitment. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, Norah.
Thank you very much, Norah, for your important perspectives from the Assembly of Rural Women. That is a very important organization in your region. I'm really glad to have you in this process of UNDROP, and we celebrate having you with us so as to articulate UNDROP implementation all over the world. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation to participate in this meeting. Now I would like to call the last member of this panel, Henri Thomas Simarmata. He's not a representative of a group. He's working with a contact group of ocean nomads. It's a group that represents nomad people living in the oceans that are generally not included in the scope, but that also face same challenges. These nomads are also holders of these rights, as Shalmali pointed out. The scope of these right holders is much bigger than it was generally conceived. So we are really, really happy to have you with us today for you to explain to us what you do and what are the main challenges you face as being part of this population.
Good evening to all of you. So can I make presentations? Let me try.
Sí.
Okay.
Pues 5 minutos, por favor, Henry.
You have 5 minutes, Henri.
Okay, while it reaches your screen, just to share some ideas on our effort to bring the UNDROP into the recognition of rights of the sea nomads. So actually there was miscommunication on my part because it should be my colleague Wenki, but I did not check what I should discuss with him early today, so I will make a presentation on behalf of our group, especially the sea nomads contact group, me also with the Simarmata, but also as up-in-law with García-Dory and Arevalo and Ajahn Narumon Arunotai in Thailand. So is this already in your screen, Rafa? Not yet? Okay. So we as a group already submitted some input to the working group of UNDROP. So I'm hoping that Shalmali and Geneva and the working group already checked some of the document, and they did because they put in the website. Just very quick on the name and attribution. Sometimes people are calling C4, C gypsies, C people, boat people, etc. But we as a group, we call them sea nomads. So of course there are some varieties of the cinemas, not all of them are all the same. The first group or category, we see them as a group who still living on the boat, wandering around islands and the sea, and very, very far away, and often they are afraid of sedentary people, so they tend to be really reclusive. Second category, those already have settlement, but very, very attached to the sea and islands. And the third category, already living sedentary, but have a very, very strong maritime culture. So if you look at the map here, just to show you some of where they live at this moment. So this research is also put into available by Wenki Ariando and Chulalongkorn University. And there are some in Thailand, in Myanmar, in Indonesia, in the south of the Philippines, north of Malaysia, and they have different names. It's called Bajo, Orang Laut, Moken, Moklen, Orak Lawai, and others. So it's, the name are really varies. And if you look at Indonesian map, and the group is also really scattered, and they, on the green color is, they call themselves Bajo or Sama Bajo. On the yellow, they call them Orang Lao. So they are really living in the island and the sea. And how we come up with this research and advocacy for recognitions based on UNDROP, because we see some problem related with the right to life. So there are issue of citizenship, because they always going trans-border, even as far as Thailand to north of Australian waters, or Australian north of Australian waters, even to the north of the border of the Philippines and Sabah in Malaysia. So they really going far away, and they have accused as stealing people because their living is not sedentary, and sometimes they just call in very, very derogatory name towards them. And they are competing on the resources, maritime resources, on educations, on the land tenure and holding, and on the community culture. And how we put UNDROP into the work of recognition. So if I remember, when I was involved during the UNDROP negotiation, in the very, very last moment, very, very last time of negotiation, the most, one of the most position is towards migrations. So at the time there are some delegation who traditionally supporting the UNDROP process, but they say that they did not really feeling comfortable with references on migration and nomadic terms. So, but at the end of the day, there are two articles, Article 1.3 and Article 21, who mention about the nomadic right to life, nomadic existence, and this is how we started our work in trying to develop recognitions, state-based, but also regional-based. We also working with Indonesian government, Thailand government, Malaysian governments, but also to the UN system, especially to different special procedures, but mainly, of course, with the working group of the peasant rights. So this is just very quick presentations on the effort to for the recognition of the seminars. Yes, thank you.
Muchas gracias, Henry.
Thank you very much, Henry, for your perspectives on rural population that I was not acquainted with before. talking about this with you. So you bring a very new perspective to us, and the important role of UNDROP of making a call for these populations to be acknowledged as also a holder of these rights. And with the support of the working group at the UN level, it can be an important opportunity to accomplish what Shalmali mentioned at the beginning, just so as to include in the scope the population that define themselves as protagonists in and as the holders of those rights. Thank you very much for your contributions and your complementary views in this forum, bringing these different perspectives from different organizations that are part of the UNDROP constituents. We have less than 15 minutes left. We have Christophe from the webpage committee. I don't know if you would like to say some words so as to close the webinar, but before closing this meeting, I would like to open the floor for the speakers to answer some of the questions that were written here in the chat box. Would you, any of you, answer some of these questions? And also, Shalmali, if you want to say something, you're going to be welcome. Okay, you need to be really brief, Modesta. Yes, thank you, Rafa. There is a question about the consequences. So as to address the consequences, the main challenge from our perspective is to get unified in the territories and to be able to generate from the grassroots sanctions to politicians or the state. Sometimes mobilizing or organizing a rally is not enough to see how we can promote proposals of legislative sanctions or other kind of sanctions, because in many states and countries in the world, including mine, it seems that there aren't any declarations as the UNDROP. And so we have to face this challenge and strengthen our union in the territories through so as to promote these sanctions joined by the grassroots organization. Anybody else would like to make a comment or answer a question, or just to answer any of the questions that were written in the chat box?
Rafa, may I?
Por favor, please.
Yeah, just very quickly, I put my ideas in the chat, and perhaps they can be, I saw somebody was translating them into Spanish and French, thank you. But I think the issue of strategy and coming together is very important. And I know we don't have time here. So I make an invitation to all of you again, the rights holders organizations, please engage with the working group. Please engage with us directly through Defending Peasant Rights, whatever. Let's find ways in which we unite against the common enemies, not get divided, and come up with strategies at different levels. Because my observation, my small observation in this 1 year of being in the working group, is that this is one of the worst times for multilateralism, real multilateralism, and for genuine human rights that are centered on human and collective rights. And UNDROP is not popular among governments, many governments, even those who signed on to them, no? So we have to, let's use the human rights system in the United Nations for what it's good at. We're getting good language, right? We're getting good laws or whatever, treaties, but let's not expect too much implementation there. For implementation, we have to rely on ourselves and build the forces together. And implementation will be different in different regions, because even the protections that are available in different regions are different. The way constitutions are happening in some of our sub-regions, there are coups upon coups, you know? So the challenges are tremendous. And just as UNDROP's rights holders are diverse, the context in which they are living and all of us are living are diverse. So we will need to come up with diverse strategies. So again, my appeal is, please, let's work together, contact us, and we're there for you. I just stop here.
Gracias, Shalmali, por esas palabras.
Thank you, Shalmali. I'm sorry, I think Rafael was muted. I was just thanking Shalmali for those beautiful words, for the upcoming challenges. So once again, to call on all the organizations, both rural and allies that are related and interested in peasants' rights and food sovereignty, to participate on this process of creating incidents for the promotion of the installation of this instrument, and to contribute this collective platform that we've been building since 2022. Perhaps, Danilo, you can write the contact email in the chat box. Do not hesitate to contact us, maybe also to bring again the questions that we weren't able to address today, but we are willing to answer to all your questions and doubts. And we really hope that we can continue a collective building to create a digital war that can work as a resource for our struggle for democratization of food systems. To conclude, I'll give the floor to Christoph, from director of the committee of the website. Thank you, Christoph, for being here with us to conclude the webinar
today, and to give this conclusion. We are extremely happy to have Danilo with us as the new editor of the website, and that also you all met him today. Thank you very much, Shalmali, for your insights about the rights holders of UNDROP and how they can collaborate with the UN working group. Thank you to all contributors that showed today that the collaboration that was key during the negotiation of UNDROP can allow us to continue to push for its implementation. Thanks to Edouard for WAMIP, Sue for IIUT, Jones for WFFP, CD for IITC, Modesta for FIMARC, Norah for Rural Women Assembly, and our friend Henri Simarmata, who defends the rights of sea nomads. Please continue to share information with us that we can put on the website. We need to continue to the fight together. One way might be to create a global network of friends of the declaration, like this already exists in some countries. We will keep you informed about that possibility. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much, everyone. See you shortly.
Vamos a publicar la grabación del...
We will publish the recording of the event in the different languages, so you will be able to share it with your networks and organizations. Thank you. Thank you to the interpreters. Thank you so much.